I was banned from my own office because of my CO mother-in-law. I never imagined the day would come when I'd be escorted out of my own company like a criminal. Yet, here I was, standing on the pavement outside Langley Tech's headquarters, my name erased from the building, my access revoked, my entire empire ripped from my hands. The worst part? The woman responsible for my downfall was upstairs, sitting in my chair behind my desk, calling the shots as if she hadn't just orchestrated the biggest betrayal of my life. Victoria Langley, my mother-in-law, the new CEO, and the woman who had spent years pretending to support me, only to stab me in the back when I least expected it. And Anna, my wife, my partner, the woman I built this life with, she had signed the termination letter. The security guards flanking me cleared their throats, trying to avoid eye contact as they shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Hayes, we have to ask you to leave the premises." I barely heard them. My mind was stuck on the name at the bottom of the letter. Anna Langley Hayes. "Wait here," I told them, pulling out my phone. My fingers trembled as I called her, my breath coming out in sharp, ragged bursts. She didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. My messages remained unread. I wasn't just kicked out of my own company, I was exiled from my own life. This wasn't just a power move. This was war. I met Anna 10 years ago when I was just a struggling entrepreneur with nothing but a laptop and a dream. We built Langley Tech together. Late nights, endless meetings, sacrifices that nearly broke us. But we made it. We turned my dream into a billion-dollar empire. And then I let Victoria in. She was a powerhouse in the corporate world, a woman who knew how to navigate boardrooms with the same ease as she manipulated people. I thought she was an asset. I thought she was family. I was wrong. One by one, she started replacing my people with hers. My CFO? Gone. My board of directors? Slowly filled with her allies. My most trusted employees? Swayed by whispers and promises. And now my wife, my own wife, had sided with her. I refused to believe it. Anna wouldn't do this. Not to me. Not to us. Unless she had been planning this all along. I didn't go home. I didn't even know if home was still mine. Instead, I went to the one place I knew Victoria wouldn't expect me to go. My old office, the tiny one-bedroom workspace where it all began. And Mark was already there, waiting. Mark had been my best friend, my co-founder. We started Langley Tech together. We built it from scratch. But he had grown distant in the last year, choosing neutrality when I needed him most. I should have known something was off. "I heard," he said the second I walked in. I slammed the door behind me. "Did you know?" He hesitated. A second too long. That was all I needed. I lunged at him, grabbing him by the collar. "Did you know?" Mark didn't fight back. He just looked at me with something between guilt and regret. I didn't think it would go this far. I let go, shoving him away in disgust. "That's not an answer." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "They told me you'd be demoted, not thrown out." "They?" I repeated. "Who's they?" "Victoria?" His silence spoke volumes. "You were supposed to have my back." My voice cracked. "We built this together." "I tried to warn you," Mark said. "But you were too focused on fighting Victoria instead of outplaying her. You were emotional. She was strategic." I turned away, gripping the desk for support. He was right. I had underestimated her. And now I had nothing. Or so they thought. I spent the next 24 hours planning. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I called every ally I had left, dug into every deal Victoria had made in the last 6 months, searched for anything I could use to burn her empire to the ground. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about taking back my company anymore. This was personal. And I was going to make them all pay. Starting with my wife. The days following my exile from my own company were nothing short of a living nightmare. I had built that empire from the ground up, poured my blood, sweat, and every waking hour into making it the success it was. And now, thanks to my mother-in-law, I had been ousted like an unworthy outsider, left with nothing but the bitter taste of betrayal. The morning after the board meeting, I woke up in our penthouse, hoping, even praying, that it had all been a bad dream. But the empty side of the bed where my wife, Alicia, should have been reminded me that this was my new reality. She had spent the night at her mother's place, refusing to take my calls or answer my messages. I knew she was struggling, caught between loyalty to me and the overwhelming pressure of her mother. But that didn't make it hurt any less. As I sat in my home office, staring blankly at the skyline, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Meet me at Carlton Cafe in an hour. We need to talk." I hesitated, then replied. "Who is this?" The response was immediate. A friend. Someone who still believes in you. I didn't have much to lose at this point, so I decided to go. The cafe was a quiet, upscale spot where most corporate deals were made in whispers over espresso shots. I spotted a familiar face in the corner, David, my former CFO. He looked tense, his fingers tapping against the table as he saw me approach. "I don't have much time," he said as I sat down. "The company is in chaos. Your mother-in-law has declared herself acting CEO, but people aren't happy. Some of the board members are already regretting their decision. And there's something else, something you need to know." I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "What is it?" "She's making moves, Arian. Not just taking over but trying to erase you completely. They're revising contracts, altering financial records, turning you into a liability. Soon, there'll be legal battles, allegations of misconduct. If you don't act now, you might never get the company back." The air in my lungs turned ice cold. "How do I fight this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. David sighed. "You need leverage. You need allies. And most of all, you need Alicia on your side. If she stands against you, it's over." The mention of my wife sent a sharp pang through my chest. She had been my rock for years. But now she was nowhere to be found. That evening, I drove to my mother-in-law's estate, determined to see Alicia. The guards at the gate gave me a hard time, but I wasn't leaving without talking to my wife. Eventually, she emerged onto the porch, looking tired, her eyes red-rimmed like she had been crying. "Arian, you shouldn't be here," she said, her voice shaking. "What? Because your mother said so?" I shot back, frustration boiling over. She flinched. "She's doing what she thinks is best. You," she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "You weren't listening, Arian. You were always obsessed with the company. You barely saw what was happening around you." I exhaled sharply. "You think I didn't see it? The way she was manipulating you? The way she wanted control over everything, including our marriage?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a brief moment, I saw the Alicia I knew, the woman who had once fought for me, believed in me. But then she looked away. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered. My heart shattered into a million pieces. Before I could say another word, the front door opened and my mother-in-law stepped out, exuding the same venomous confidence she always had. "That's enough, Arian," she said coldly. "You have no place here. You never did." I clenched my fists, swallowing the fury rising in my throat. "You think you've won, don't you?" She smirked. "I don't think, Arian. I know." For the first time in days, I felt something other than despair. I felt rage. And with it, the fire to fight back. Over the next few weeks, I worked in the shadows. I gathered intel, reached out to old allies, and slowly pieced together a strategy. The more I uncovered, the worse the situation got. Fraudulent transactions, backdoor dealings, hush-money payouts, it was all there. My mother-in-law had been orchestrating this coup for months, and I had been blind to it. But I wasn't blind anymore. Then came the biggest blow. Alicia filed for legal separation. I stared at the papers in my hands, disbelief coursing through me. I had known things were bad between us, but this was betrayal on another level. That night, I drank myself into oblivion, drowning in heartbreak and anger. But the next morning, I woke up with renewed purpose. This wasn't just about getting my company back anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and the love I had lost. The war wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The office that once bore my name, the company I had built with my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights, now felt like a distant memory. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Sinclair, had wrenched it away from me, using her cunning, her influence, and my own wife, Clara, as a weapon against me. I had been banned from my own empire. But I was not one to accept defeat. I watched from the outside as everything I had built became hers, manipulated into her iron grip. The staff, my staff, now looked at me with either pity or indifference, as though I were a mere ghost haunting the halls of my own legacy. Clara, my beloved wife, had remained by her mother's side, torn between loyalty to me and the web of manipulation Eleanor had woven around her since birth. As the days turned to weeks, my desperation gave way to rage. My so-called downfall was a game orchestrated by Eleanor, and I refused to be a pawn. I began digging into her past, her connections, her weaknesses. If she wanted to play dirty, I would play dirtier. But then, something unexpected happened. Clara showed up at my door. Her eyes were puffy, dark circles visible beneath them. She had lost weight, and the glow that once surrounded her was gone. She looked as broken as I felt. "We need to talk," she whispered. I let her in, my heart hammering. I didn't know if I should be angry, relieved, or suspicious. I made a mistake, she confessed, looking at her hands. I let her get inside my head again. But I didn't know how far she would go. I thought she just wanted to protect me, to protect our future. But she's ruining everything. And she's hiding something. I stiffened. What do you mean? Clara swallowed hard. I overheard her talking to someone. She has a secret account, offshore. There are millions there, money funneled from the company. Your company. I clenched my fist. Of course, Eleanor had been playing a deeper game than just forcing me out. She wasn't just taking over, she was draining the company dry. I can't let her do this, Clara said, her voice trembling. I won't. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in my chest. If Clara was back on my side, I had a chance. We started working in secret. Clara still had access to the company's internal systems, and with her help, I was able to retrieve files proving Eleanor's embezzlement. The deeper we dug, the more disgusting the truth became. She had been siphoning funds for years, long before she orchestrated my removal. She had connections with corrupt officials, laundering money through shell companies, and even had my name attached to some of the transactions, setting me up to take the fall if anything went wrong. I wanted to destroy her. But I needed to be smart about it. Clara and I arranged a meeting with the company's board. Eleanor, of course, wasn't expecting an ambush. The moment she saw me walk into that boardroom, her lips curled into an icy smirk. Oh, did security let you in by mistake? No, I said calmly, placing a folder on the table. I let myself in. The room was silent as I slid the documents across the table. This is proof that Eleanor Sinclair has been embezzling company funds for years. Offshore accounts, ghost employees, fraudulent contracts. Eleanor's smirk wavered for a fraction of a second, but she quickly recovered. This is ridiculous. Fabricated lies from a bitter man who can't handle losing. Clara, sitting across from her, spoke up. Mother, I heard you talking about the accounts myself. I saw the transactions. I know the truth. A murmur spread through the room. Board members who had once been loyal to Eleanor now looked at her with suspicion. You ungrateful, Eleanor hissed, turning on Clara, but I cut her off. You made the mistake of thinking you could take everything from me and I'd just walk away, I said, my voice calm but seething. But you underestimated me, Eleanor. And now you're going to pay for it. The vote was swift. Eleanor was removed from the company, effective immediately. Legal action would follow. She stormed out, but not before throwing one last dagger at Clara. You are no daughter of mine. Clara's face crumbled, but she held her ground. It was over. Or so I thought. A week after Eleanor's downfall, Clara and I were starting to rebuild. The company was back in my hands, but things weren't perfect. There were still wounds, between me and Clara, between her and the shattered remnants of her family. Then one night Clara got a call. Her father. We had never spoken much about him. He had left when Clara was young, and Eleanor had made sure she believed he was the villain. But now he was reaching out, saying he had something to tell her. Clara met him alone. When she came back, she was shaking. She's worse than we thought, she whispered. She's done things we can't even imagine. My father, he didn't just leave. She ruined him. Framed him for a crime he didn't commit. Destroyed his life. And he says she might not be done with us. My stomach turned. I had thought we had won. But Eleanor Sinclair wasn't the kind of woman who accepted defeat. And now I feared the real war was just beginning. The moment I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. My life was already spiraling, banned from my own company by my CO mother-in-law, my marriage hanging by a thread, and my reputation dragged through the mud. But the worst part? I still had no idea what my wife truly believed. Was she on my side, or had she fallen prey to her mother's web of lies? As I sat in the dimly lit hotel room that had become my refuge, I scrolled through my emails, hoping for something, anything, that would hint at a way back. A message from an old colleague caught my eye. I think you should see this. Be careful. Attached was a series of financial reports, documents I had never seen before but were signed in my name. Money had been siphoned out of the company, funneled into offshore accounts, and now it seemed like every trace of it led back to me. My heart pounded. This wasn't just corporate sabotage. This was a setup to destroy me completely. I immediately called my lawyer, Richard. We have a problem, I said, pacing the room. A big one. Someone is making it look like I embezzled funds. I need you to analyze these documents. Richard exhaled sharply. They've thought this through. If this reaches the board, or worse, the authorities, you could be looking at serious legal trouble. I clenched my fist. I need proof. If my mother-in-law is behind this, I need to expose her. That's when my phone buzzed again, This time it was my wife, Sophia. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low. "It's urgent." I met her at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of town. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her once pristine posture slumped. "You need to stop fighting her," she said, barely above a whisper. "She's too powerful." I frowned. "So, you believe her? That I stole from my own company? That I betrayed everything I built?" She hesitated. "I don't know what to believe anymore. All I know is that my mother is ruthless. She will do anything to win. And she's not just after your company, she's after you." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Sophia bit her lip, her eyes darting around as if someone might be listening. "I overheard her on a call. She's pushing for a criminal investigation. If she gets her way, you won't just lose the company, you'll lose your freedom." Rage bubbled inside me. "And what about you, Sophia? Are you going to let her do this?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what to do. She's my mother. But you're my husband. I never wanted to be caught in the middle of this war." "Then pick a side," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "Because she's not just attacking me, she's destroying everything we built together." She looked away. "I need time." I laughed bitterly. "Time is a luxury I don't have." I left without another word, anger and betrayal swirling inside me. If Sophia couldn't stand up to her mother, then I had to fight alone. The next morning Richard called me with an update. "I found something interesting," he said. "Your mother-in-law isn't just going after you, she's been moving funds around in ways that suggest she's planning something bigger." "Like what?" "Like a complete takeover. She's setting up shell companies, buying out minor shareholders under different names. If she succeeds, she won't just oust you, she'll own everything." I clenched my jaw. "Then we need to stop her." I spent the next few days gathering evidence, connecting dots, and preparing for a counterattack. But the real bombshell came when an anonymous email landed in my inbox. "Meet me at the old pier. Midnight. I have information that will change everything." Against my better judgment, I went. The night was cold, the docks deserted. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. As he stepped closer, I recognized him. David, a former board member who had mysteriously resigned a year ago. "You're in danger," he said without preamble. "Your mother-in-law? She's not working alone. She has powerful backers, people who want your company for reasons beyond profit." "Who?" He hesitated. "Let's just say, they don't operate within the law." My stomach dropped. "You mean, criminals?" David nodded. "I was forced out because I knew too much. If you don't act fast, you'll be next." Before I could ask more, headlights flashed in the distance. David stiffened. "I have to go. Be careful." And just like that, he was gone. I barely had time to process what he said before another text arrived. This time from Sophia. "Come home. I need to talk to you. It's important." Something in my gut told me this wasn't just another emotional plea. This was different. Urgent. When I arrived, I found her in our bedroom, her face pale. She held a folder in her hands. "I found this in my mother's study," she said, handing it to me. Inside were documents detailing a secret board meeting, one scheduled for tomorrow. The agenda? My official removal from the company. Sophia looked at me, her expression torn. "I made my choice. I'm with you. But we need to act fast." I exhaled, a mix of relief and anxiety coursing through me. "Then let's bring her down." Little did I know the battle had only just begun. I stood at the threshold of what was once my empire, staring at the gleaming glass doors of the office building where I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears. My name was still on the plaque outside, but inside I was a stranger, a pariah exiled by the very people I had trusted the most. My wife, Sophia, was nowhere to be seen, and my mother-in-law, the tyrannical CEO Eleanor Whitmore, had all but ensured I remained powerless. But today was different. Today I was done being the victim. I had spent the last week gathering every piece of dirt I could on Eleanor, combing through financial records, talking to ex-employees, and even hiring a private investigator. And what I found was bigger than I could have ever imagined. Embezzlement, fraud, insider trading, it was all there, buried under years of careful deception. If I played my cards right, I could take her down for good. As I entered the building, I could feel the stares, the hushed whispers, the tense atmosphere. It was as if the walls themselves knew that a storm was coming. I made my way straight to the boardroom, where I knew Eleanor would be presiding over a critical meeting. I burst through the doors. "Hope I'm not interrupting," I said, my voice steady despite the rapid pounding of my heart. Eleanor looked up, her expression a perfect mask of feigned surprise. "Nathan, you shouldn't be here." Oh, I think I should. In fact, I think everyone in this room deserves to hear what I have to say. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the tension. Sophia was there too, sitting quietly in a corner. She looked tired, conflicted, but she said nothing. I pulled out the stack of documents I had brought with me and slammed them onto the table. These, I said, are proof that Eleanor Whitmore has been siphoning company funds for years, manipulating the stock prices, bribing officials. And if anyone in this room wants to go down with her, be my guest. Eleanor's face turned pale for the first time since I had known her. This is absurd, she scoffed, but there was an edge of fear in her voice. Where did you get this? Oh, you'd be surprised what people will tell you when they've been wronged by someone like you. The room erupted into murmurs. Some board members started flipping through the documents. Others simply looked at Eleanor, their expressions a mix of shock and realization. You have no proof these documents are real, she tried again, her voice shaking just slightly. I smirked. That's where you're wrong. You see, I sent copies to the SEC this morning. And to the press. So, in about an hour, the world will know exactly what you've been up to. Panic flashed in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with rage. You think you've won? She spat. You think you can take me down and just walk away? I don't think, I said. I know. Just then Sophia stood up. Her hands were trembling as she looked at her mother. Is it true? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sophia, I did this for us, Eleanor said desperately. For our family. For you. Sophia shook her head. No, you did this for yourself. You ruined Nathan's life, tried to turn me against him, and now I find out you've been lying to me this entire time? Eleanor reached for her, but Sophia stepped back. I trusted you, she whispered. But I can't anymore. The doors to the boardroom swung open and security entered, followed by 2 officers. Mrs. Whitmore, one of them said. We have a warrant for your arrest. The entire room went still. Eleanor let out a sharp breath, her eyes darting between the officers and me. You, she seethed. You did this. No, I corrected. You did this to yourself. As they led her away, the weight of years of manipulation, betrayal, and deceit finally lifted off my chest. The board, now seeing Eleanor for who she truly was, turned to me with a mixture of admiration and wariness. Nathan, one of them said. We need a new CEO. I let out a slow breath. I'll think about it. But right now, I have something more important to focus on. I turned to Sophia. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, but this time they weren't just of sadness. There was something else, hope. Nathan, she started, but I held up a hand. We'll talk, I said gently. But first let's go home. And for the first time in a long time, I truly felt like I was going home. This story is a powerful lesson about the dangers of office politics, the complexities of family dynamics, and the resilience needed to overcome betrayal. It follows a man who built his company from the ground up, only to be pushed out by his own CEO mother-in-law, manipulated by those closest to him, including his wife. Through relentless struggles, unexpected alliances, and emotional turmoil, he fights to reclaim his place, not just in the company but also in his life. This serves as a reminder that trust, loyalty, and power struggles can exist anywhere, even within our own families. It shows how ambition, greed, and manipulation can tear relationships apart, but also how perseverance and self-worth can lead to redemption. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something like this, where personal and professional lives collided in a shocking way? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this gripping drama, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.